Action Comics has pretty much been defined by the fact that it has not been taking place on Earth. But now Superman's back on Earth. You're really setting the scene in Metropolis. How do you kind of define your Metropolis?
Action Comics specifically is defined by the word super family. It's all about the entire cast. When I first came onto the Superman and Action Comics series, they let me do this crazy event that takes him so far out of his comfort zone, and we saw him in the context of a war world that we'd never seen, like put him in a new costume, surround him with a new cast, and just completely different than what he ever does. And now that we're going back to the iconic, Metropolis setting with the iconic cast and everything, it's all about the characters that we haven't seen for a while now. And I wanted to show every character in the super family, and really define what makes them all different. Show the personality of each character and kind of define them in a way that might not be clear to all the readers. So yeah, I cannot wait for this new era to kick off.
When you talk about characters you haven't seen in a while and really giving them a moment, is it Action 1048 with Bibbo? Where Bibbo just shows up for 2 pages, and it's just the most wonderful Bibbo moment with the 2 kids. Of all the things, that was the thing that made me yell when I read it.
Oh, thanks, man. I love Bibbo so much. And beginning to write these upcoming issues alongside Dan Jergens that wrote those old issues that meant so much to me, and how much I love Bibbo, man. As a character, he was tippy top of my list for characters I knew I had to bring out. I just love Bibbo, and he just personifies what makes Superman great too. Just the fact that he is a guy that is not as magnificently capable as Superman is, but he still takes all the lessons from Superman that we all should. He's no less afraid. In that issue, we see him go up against a new god that is gonna just pulverize him, and it doesn't even slow him down. He's like, this is what you do.
Yeah. And I've always wanted to ask, I don't know if it's something I should ask Dan Jergens or Jerry Ordway, about the earliest Bibbo appearances where he just seems like this weird background Popeye character, and then he becomes this big, lovable, and as we see in your book, the guy who just gives 2 kids a gallon of ice cream.
I think the first time I had seen, I know that I interact with people online all the time that have even a greater knowledge of Superman's history than me. The issues that I saw him in is when he found and took in crypto, and he was just this lovable guy that to me kind of teaches me a lot of the same lessons as Superman did, but in a way that he's the normal guy version of that. I could not love Bibbo more than I do.
And on the other end of that spectrum, we have Metallo. And that first image of Metallo in Action 1047 it's actually kind of sad. It's almost like he's this terminal patient, and just removed from the usual Metallo context.
Yeah, the way we got to Metallo in his current state is by kind of just asking questions that make sense. We've got this metahuman, this guy who is just basically a brain in a robotic body now, powered by kryptonite, and now he's a prisoner. So how do you lock up a guy like that? So you could envision him in his usual super powerful suit with his kryptonite heart imprisonment. It kind of doesn't make sense. Why would you leave him super powerful? So instead, they've put him in this body that's practically like a crash test dummy that barely is functional. And he's, being the character that he is, as ragey as he is, he's all the time he'll try to escape, or he'll just throw these tantrums, and so he'll just smash himself against the wall, against the door over and over until he's just falling apart, or he just throws a fit, and so they take out his voice box, or they remove his legs or whatever. He's this, how do they keep him prisoner but still have enough decency to at least let him have a body of some kind, so he's not just a brain in a jar? And it's this really tragic, sad situation for him. So when we see him again, I want people to feel sorry for him, honestly. I want this guy that he's done horrible things. He's a murderer. He's the worst kind of criminal. But now he's living this sad, honestly pathetic kind of existence that you wouldn't wish on anyone. And as the issues go on, we're going to see him become more and more the Metallo that we recognize, that we're afraid of, and remind us why he is a legit capital S supervillain kind of character. And then see him also kind of upgrade in a way that we haven't seen. A lot of the stuff that we introduced on War World, actually, spoilers, was with Metallo in mind. We had the unmade that we see on there, who are essentially undead cyborg necro warriors, like these dead warriors that were super powerful that are then, quote unquote, honored by being repurposed in these cyborg bodies that are made incredibly powerful through Mongols, alchemists, and necromancers. And I was thinking, like, how could these guys are powered by Genesis, this new, this thing this mineral that's in the center of Warworld that we now know is basically the blood of an old god. But what if that was Metallo, with a kryptonite heart, or could we see Genesis powered Metallo, like with using Warworld tech? I wanted to see a new version of Metallo that could actually hang with someone like Superman, not just a robot that got kicked around that kind of sets him back a step because of the kryptonite aspect, but a thing that is so powerful that it could actually set Superman on his heels.
I spoke to Joshua Williamson earlier about villains in general, and he said there's like a really interesting take on Lex Luthor coming in his Superman book. But I'm curious with you, because obviously Luthor is a presence like right from the start in the new era of action. But Luthor is a character who there's kind of like a continuum with Lex Luthor. Like on the one end, you have like the Elliot S. Magan Luthor, who absolutely could and should be just like the greatest guy in the world if he was not just blinded by his jealousy and hatred of Superman. And then like there's like the other end of the spectrum where he really is just like a really, really bad dude, like just doing bad stuff for the sake of it. As you two are working towards, this new era of Superman and Metropolis and classic Superman villains, where do you feel like Luthor is going to fall in this?
There are elements of both of those that I see as true. Like he is, extremely capable. Of course, is a brilliant mind that knows in his heart and soul that he knows that Metropolis is his. Like he has the best vision for what Metropolis should be. When Superman comes back from Warworld, he sees the state that the world is in and is struck by how quickly things have gotten worse in his absence. Not necessarily because of his absence, but he's always been content to let humanity find its own way, and he has faith in us to find our own way and to steer towards, the best version of ourselves over the long term. Now he is starting to worry that the super family needs to take a more active role to help. And he offers a way to bring Metropolis into the future, to give the world an example of a city that can be the best version of itself. He really wants to bring Metropolis into the future, make it the city of tomorrow in a way that'll be like a shining star to the world of what we can all be. And that runs counter to Lex's vision, and it's better than his vision, and he can't have that.
Action has evoked the Triangle era, just like the fact that you go back to Warworld and Mongol being such a big presence, of course, is kind of automatically going to do that. And now what you and Joshua and Tom are going to do with these books going forward, of course, there's going to be that kind of interplay. But one of the underappreciated elements of that era is how well it utilized the Jack Kirby Fourth World concepts and how effortlessly they were woven into Metropolis. And it looks like you're going like full bore at the New Gods again, which we haven't seen in DC for a long time. So what are your rules, or what are the general rules at DC? Like if somebody wants to use the New Gods, how does this work? And how is this going to work, alongside Superman?
Well, I mean, the Kirby verse is the mythology. It's like the creation myths of the DC universe. It's the Old Testament of the DCU, and it would be crazy, especially as someone who just loves to world build and loves to do the deep dives.
You?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I think you were slacking a little on the Warworld stuff. I don't know. No.
Well, I mean, one of the mission statements of the Warworld saga was to tie in the modern characters with its mythology, with like the old world stuff. So I wanted to show what Warworld, quote unquote, really is. Show that it's actually much older than we thought, and it wasn't like the origins of it that we thought we knew were actually untrue, and that it ties into the very earliest versions of the Fourth World, the First World gods, and Olgrin, God of Gods, and all that, to tie in the current continuity, modern day characters with the origins of Kirby's world that he sometimes alluded to.
DC's in an interesting place continuity-wise right now, where it does kind of feel like every story kind of happened. Again, Triangle era, big touchstone. You know, I think we're all kind of that generation. But I also saw a lot of the Golden Age Superman in the War World run, which is weird. Like, I feel like you brought a lot of that, you know, street level champion of the oppressed early days of the character, but you were just doing it, you know, in space. Right. So, you know, do you have kind of like a unifying theory of Superman that you're trying to, like, it doesn't even matter about continuity, but I just thought it was an interesting place to see that kind of rougher edged, more socially conscious Superman than we sometimes associate with the character.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. Champion of the oppressed is who he is, right? The whole point of Superman is that he cares about others more than himself. Sometimes people will reach out online like, you know, I want to see Superman do these crazy feat, like physical feats of strength and all that. And what they need to know, like, that stuff is already happening now, and in the post-War World stuff is happening for sure. And he's already kind of doing it on War World. Even without his powers, he would find ways to get these crazy things done. But now he's supercharged with the White Sun that's in War World Saga. We're going to see him extremely powerful. But what I always try to keep at the front of my mind in every issue is that the insane levels of power are only there to illustrate how incorruptible he is. If he's just doing it because he's tough, it doesn't matter. It's just bombast for its own sake. We need to see the man of absolute power who is not corrupt, who wields it with absolute compassion and humility, and that needs to be at the core of who he is and what we show on the page. I wanted to show a real feel-good moment in 1047 where he, you know, flies with a car. You know, he saves the family car going off the bridge, and then he takes a minute to kind of check on the kids in the back seat. And I wanted to have that kind of a Christopher Reeve moment where he's like, the kid tries to give him his toy, and he's like, you keep him, son. He's going to miss you, but there's one thing you can do for me. Make sure you always wear your seatbelt like you did today. And that, to me, I was trying to invoke that Christopher Reeve moment where he's like, I hope this hasn't put you off flying. You know, like, statistically speaking, it's still the safest way to fly. Just that little PSA of like, here's how you keep yourself safe, and thanks so much. I'm just here to help. It just makes you, kind of gives you the chills, you know, like this like, I just want to be that. I want to be that thing. I want to be that guy who just you can do anything and uses it to just help people that need it.
I certainly hope this little incident hasn't put you off flying, miss. Statistically speaking, of course, it's still the safest way to travel.
Right. And this is the same title and the same writer who just 5 minutes ago was talking about, you know, cyborg necro soldiers.
Right, exactly.
So like, if that doesn't like convince people that Superman books are really, really cool right now, I don't know what will.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
Thanks so much.